So hi everyone and welcome to Quick Start Introduction to Sudowrite. I'm Dahlia and I'll be your guide as we explore how to get started with Sudowrite. Here with me today is my lovely co-host Tomas, who will keep an eye on the chat. Whether you're completely new or just need a refresher, this session will help you to understand the platform's key features and how to use them effectively. By the end of the workshop, you know how to create and manage projects, what the interface looks like, how to navigate the most important tools and use them, those tools like write, rewrite, and brainstorm. And you'll also have learned how to customize Sudowrite to fit your needs. So let's now dive into Sudowrite. And of course, in case there are any questions left at the end, we'll also have a Q&A. So when you log into Sudowrite, you should see this screen. Where you have all your projects and folders. And here in the upper corner, you can create a new project, folder or series. And folders are a great way to keep everything tidy. You can sort your projects into folders based on genre or the current status or pen name. In my case, I sorted stuff, since I'm teaching in German and English, into teaching English and teaching German. Series folders work similar to the usual folders, except that they allow to share the visibility of story information across projects, which makes them very useful when you're writing in one world and wants to share all your story Bible stuff. Here you'll also have the option to import a novel, which is very helpful if you already have a manuscript. This feature will create a new project with a pre-populated story Bible, pulling in details like characters and world-building elements. And to import a project, you have to simply click on this, select the file, and then the process will start. And depending on the size of your project, I think the limit is 120,000 words. It may take a while until it's ready, but then you have a project that's already prepared for you to work in it, which is really great if you want to continue a work in progress or want to prepare working on a sequel for a novel that you haven't started in Sudowrite. And there are also this little nice 3 dots on every project that you can use to export the project, to duplicate it, to move it to a folder, or to delete it. If you accidentally hit on the delete button, don't fret. If you're fast enough, you can go to this little thingy pop-up that now has vanished and undo it, or you can go in here to deleted projects. See, it's here, and either permanently delete it, but in this case, I want to restore it so that it goes back to where it was before. Are there any questions so far about the basics here on this side?
Chat is clear so far.
Awesome. Before we dive in, I totally forgot that I have a little class document with information for you, so I'll post this in the chat now. So you don't have to write everything down. I'll say you get it in a concise little document where you can read everything. That's important. But there are also other resources which are quite nice, which you can find here. For one, the live classes. Since you're here, I assume that you found this part already. It's also very good to join the Discord if you have any questions, but there's also our user guide or YouTube where you can find answers for questions. And if you ever want to get in touch, here you can suggest features, report a bug, or use the email or chat function to reach out to the customer service. Yep. And while we're up here, here's also the project search, which helps you to find the project you're currently working in. And it also goes into your various folders, which is very neat. So that you can, as long as you remember the title of the project, you can find it. Even if you're like me and have like 70 to 80 projects. Too many ideas. I'm pretty sure a lot of you know this problem. And here you have the little setting panel where you can manage your membership, your billing information, access your deleted project as we've seen before, can start a tour. You can log out, which I'm not doing now because then we have to go to the process of logging back in. And here you can also see how many credits you have still left for the month. Credits are like the currency for Sudowrite's AI-powered features. And so everything, almost everything with AI will cost you credits, which varies a lot between, depending on whether the feature uses a lot of input and gives you a lot of output, or depending on which AI model is used. So it's hard to predict how much something will cost for you, but you can figure this out for yourself with a bit of trial and error. But there are also a few features like the import feature here, or quick chat and quick edit that are free. So if you're in a pinch, you can go with those features at the end of the month. And for these features, I'll head into a document since they don't make much sense to show you outside of a project. This here is a tutorial project that all of you should have. I thought it would be nice to use this as an example so that all of you can access it as well afterwards. But back to our settings. Here you can change your font that you like to use. I like Merriweather or Helvetica Neue. And in case you're dyslexic, we also have Open Dyslexic as a font option. And some others like Bottrop, Courier, and the classic Times New Roman. You can also change the text size to very, very small to very, very big. Usually I'm somewhere in the middle, but for classes, it's always better to have bigger text size so that you can also actually read what's on my screen. So I'll stick with this now. You can also enter and change the line spacing. You can switch on or off if you want to see the word count on top here, or whether you want indented paragraphs or not. And since we're here you have this little handy icon that tells you if something was saved. Sometimes when you have a bad internet connection, it may make this little saving sign for a while. So it's better to wait until you have the check mark before you leave, just to be sure that you don't lose anything. Here you can also switch with different themes. In case you prefer to have a dark theme or just some different colors. There's quite a variation of different dark and also some light themes. I just like to stick with the default, so base theme. Otherwise, when you look at the top corner here, you also see this little icon that's for sharing a document. With this way, you can create a link to document that you can hand to other people. And by just clicking it here, you get this document and copy the link. If you decide that you don't want this to be published anymore, you can also just hit on unpublish. Then the link won't work anymore. Are there any questions so far?
Chat is still clear.
Awesome. So I hope I haven't lost anyone yet. But now let's get into the nitty-gritty of Sudowrite and probably the things that interest you most. This is the project view. Here in the left column, you can organize your project documents. You can add new documents. You can import documents. And the difference between importing here and importing a whole novel is that if you import here, you only import the document. It won't be touched by AI, while the novel import back here will create a whole new project and will analyze the book with AI to populate the story Bible. So if you just want to add a document, you can just use this feature here. On the left column, you also have this little overview of the story Bible that you can switch off and on. And the story Bible is a great tool to organize your characters, world building, plot details, and everything that's important for your story. And it remains consistent across all documents in a project so that they can see characters and world building. That's really helpful. You can use this to plan your story by basically going from brain dump, genre style. You would need to fill out these boxes, and then you can start to generate synopsis and generate characters that have this handy little cards for each character, where you can also add traits if anything here is missing. The same for world building. You can add a lot of different cards for various things like setting or lore. And finally, your outline that is the basis for your stories. Any questions about the story Bible? This is just a very basic overview, since Story Bible itself is something where you can have a whole class about it, which I actually have, I think, next Sunday. Not sure.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when you import like a novel that's not completely done, does the AI fill in the spaces that aren't done? Like, does it generate kind of things that you didn't write?
It will try to basically finish the outline. When you import it, it will create an outline, and then when it notices that the story doesn't seem to be finished, it will go on and suggest further chapters for the story, how it could end. Which is also quite nice if you're in a work in progress and you don't know how to continue it, that you get suggestions, but it won't just write any form of text. But you will just generate an outline that has chapters that you may not have written yet, and otherwise it will go in and create world building items and character cards. It's not perfect yet, so it may make up last names for characters that don't have last names or something like that, but in general, it's a good starting point if you want to finish a book in Sudowrite. Did this answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions?
Yeah, there was a question about what is the word limit in a chapter when I insert my plot in there?
In the document or in the outline?
I think in the document.
Oh,
Dahlia, is that what you mean? Document?
I'm not sure if, shouldn't there be something in there? I'm not sure there is a limit in the document. I had documents up to, I think, 150,000 words. It may get a bit slow once you get past 100,000 words, but I'm not aware that there's any actual limit. But
yeah, I'm not sure about the limit,
sure.
but it definitely slows down.
Yeah,
I've seen, for me, it depends on what you're doing, as far as like
yes.
which tool you're using. But for me, some of them start to slow down around 80 or 90,000. But I know
Yeah.
John has reported for sure that they slow down over like 130.
Yeah. I think the longest I had in one document was like, I think it must be like 150. And that was getting a bit slow, but I thankfully have a fast computer, so that also helps. Okay. Any other questions while we are?
Yeah, this was sort of a workflow question here. It was, what's the difference between having Story Bible toggle on or off, and when is it advised to keep it on or off?
If you toggle the Story Bible off, basically all the information that's stored in the Story Bible is not accessible anymore. That can be useful if you want to save credits using the write feature, a chapter generator. But it would also mean that the story chapter generator or write only knows what's actually in the document or in the beats that you give it. So usually if I'm using the Story Bible, I always have it toggled on. Sometimes I toggle it off if I want to just brainstorm with Quick Chat, since Quick Chat also knows characters, world building, and outline. And if I want to talk with Quick Chat and make sure that it doesn't just give me the information that's already in the Story Bible, I can also toggle this off. Did this I hope this helped.
Yes, thank you. Actually, also, if you're writing a short story, would you advise keeping it on for something like that as opposed to like putting in a whole novel?
Oh, that probably depends on the kind of short story. Like if I write about fantasy, and so even if I'm just writing a short story, I would keep it on for world building or
Okay,
characters that may be recurring.
okay,
But in general, if it's a shorter idea, you may just be happy just using write or just giving the information in the chapter generator box where we have like, here we already have some beats and we have like 2,000 words of space to give it further instructions about the world and the kind of story you want to have. And
right.
I see Tomas has raised his hand and likely has some great advice as well.
Thank you.
Oh, no, it's just that more questions keep popping.
More questions. Okay. Questions are always good. I hope that the answer helped about the short stories. I'm not a big short story writer, but I know that also John had a great class recently. I'm not sure if it's up yet on, but it recently was sometime last year. Time is weird, but it's probably already up on Discord.
Okay,
I
great.
would,
Thank you.
I would say it's more of an advanced topic just because there's so many ways to go about it.
I see.
Oh yes, yeah, it's
But
really good. Yeah.
oh no, I was just going to read this. So it was a question from something you already covered. Kate wants to know if you can go back over when you import a work in progress. Sudowrite helps you generate outline characters and world building, and she just wants to, or whoever this person is, wants a little bit more explanation on that.
Yes, I sadly don't have anything imported in English yet, but I imported this project. Bear with the fact that it's in German. We're not going to read it anyway. But you got the document here, and it's taking some time for loading. Anyway. Yeah, it's a bit slow. But you will also, once this has hopefully loaded, you'll see that it gave information about genre, style, it made a synopsis, it filled out some characters and world building and an outline. It started. Okay. Yeah, it's one of my favorite authors of classical German stuff, which likely people know also in English. Kafka is quite famous for being weird. So for reading, yeah, psychological fiction, dark comedy. And this information about the genre and the style was taken from the analysis of the text and then gave a synopsis of the story and created cards for each character. And this is what you would get. And it also gave some settings, organizations that were mentioned, key events. And you'd get your outline based on what happened in the book. I hope that made it a bit clearer what you will get when you import a story. It sadly currently doesn't take the document and split it into different chapters, but I believe that's something they're working on, since that would be very neat. Any other questions?
Yeah, there was a Ray said, okay, wait a minute. There's Ray answered. Okay, I was wondering because I know AI sometimes just assign random. Okay, so Ray had a question here. It says, so AI uses the story Bible to generate ideas and prose based on what we put in there. For example, if I put in the story Bible a character has blonde hair, it will always refer to the character having blonde hair.
It should, but sometimes if you have a lot of information here in your, like this is very decent size, but if it's a lot of information, sometimes small details could get lost, but usually it works quite well that, yeah, there's this, like it's called the saliency engine that looks at the cards and picks out the relevant information. That sometimes it may not pick out what you would think is relevant. And for this reason, you can go and hide some information right now, or you can, that's planned for the future, that you can make sure that an information like the character has blonde hair is always red, because sometimes stuff like physical description may not be that important, and it may be accidentally give it brown hair or something, but that's stuff that's easily changed. On the really important stuff, in my experience, if you haven't put, like, haven't filled it up too much so that it gets a bit overwhelmed, you always get good results, that it picks the important stuff like the characteristics or the backstory quite well. I hope that helped. Because that's a bit more advanced, so I hope I didn't confuse people more than I answered the question.
Okay, chat's clear now.
Okay, great. Then after we had this little look at the story Bible, another thing you find down here is the canvas. The canvas is a neat little tool that you can use for some bit more visual organization. It's quite nice for creating outlines or like work on some, like if you like mind mapping or something, that's a nice tool. Sadly, it's currently not connected to the story Bible. So it's most useful at the beginning for brainstorming when you don't have that much information yet. I usually use this in the beginning of a project to brainstorm stuff and then to put the results of this brainstorming into my story Bible. Which also is nice that you can have these little pictures alongside your characters to give it a bit more, like, be more visual for people who prefer working that way. Go back. Yeah, this going back doesn't always work the way it should. Now we were here on the right, on the left directions. It's the left column. In the middle, we have our main main working and writing area, where we have the chapter generator box that we can hide by clicking here or clicking here. Then we have the document history. There's nothing in here because we haven't done anything in this project yet, but usually you can use this to restore older versions. And in general, this works like your average editor. You have the possibility to make things bold or italic, have bullet points, headings, and so on. You have a little find and replace. You can undo and redo stuff, just like any other of the standard editors you might use. Below this writing area, you have the story Bible if it's toggled on, so that you can just scroll down like this. And then here on the right, you have the history. Here you will find every AI generated card. When you, for example, use write or rewrite or describe, this little tools up above here. Their answers are not placed directly in this document, but they are sent to the history panel. And since you can close this, people sometimes forget it's there, but I think now if it's closed, it makes a little, I think it pops back up when you generate something, because it used to be a problem that people would generate stuff and they wouldn't find it and then figure out, oops, they have a very full history of stuff. And until there's nothing, as long as there's nothing in history, you have some little cards with informations like join the community or attend a live class. But if you don't want to see them again, you can just send them away and you have a clean little history here. If you have something generated that you like a lot, you can also give it a little star and it shows up here. Okay, Tomas? Any questions?
Someone's interested in watching you test drive the chapter generator.
We can do. We're through with the most important things, so I think we can go and try the chapter generator right now with this one, where we write in. It's just, you have this here, the little chapter generator. And we already have our beats. If we hadn't done any beats yet, we could just generate them here. And the beats, they're just some prompts, like for short passages. And every beat should be meaty enough to generate 150 to 200 words with it. There's also this neat little free feature, check beats, which will tell you whether you have formatted the beats correctly. And if you look closely, you see that here you have 7 beats, and here it says you had 8. And for a moment I was confused, and still I noticed that beat number 4 is missing here in this list. So it doesn't really matter which numbers you have here as long as you start out with one number. So in the end, this is what tells you which beats are actually there and will be written, which is quite handy, since if you make a line break, that's interpreted as a new beat. So I always advise in the beginning that you check your beats and make sure that everything is structure it the way you want it to. Since the number of beats is one way you can use to control how many words you have in the end. Here you find a little estimated word count, estimated credits, and this is for, let's see, the standard is apparently still balanced, which is a bit, I think that was a little bug I noticed lately. Balanced used to be the standard, but it's now kind of retired. And these are your like standard prose modes to use. But you can also go with the advanced stuff. And just pick a model, whatever you like. Maybe we could go and use DeepSeek or something as a test drive, since I haven't worked with that yet. And shouldn't there be another option? Okay, let's go with this, just to see what this. So this model that a lot of people talk about actually is doing. Okay. And once you've changed the standard, you see which model you're currently using down here. And then you can just hit, and it will prepare a bit and then start writing directly here in the document. Barbara Helmstedt again. Good, and while this is writing, are there any questions?
Chat's clear.
Awesome. So since it's writing a bit slowly, you could also go and just say, let's pause and move on to something else. Because you can always click this little button and it pauses immediately. Let's see that we have a.
Okay, now.
Nope.
Now
that's it.
There's that question that always pops up about models. Is there probably a more in-depth description of different models somewhere?
Wow. More that's right now, I'd say the best description for the standard stuff you'll find in here, where you have some writing samples for some of the choices. And yeah, I see right now that for a lot, there's actually nothing here. But you can get some information here about the general prose quality, how well it follows instructions, how unfiltered it is, and an idea about the costs when you look at this information, and like this little pitch about the model. So.
And someone wants to see, can you show them how to find chapter generator again?
Okay. So I hope this helped about models. A good place also to ask about this is the Discord. And I know there was some model exploration class that John had a while ago, and there were tons of information about different models, because I think if it's a question about models, you just should ask John Creason, because he knows everything. I would feel like he knows everything. But let's go back to the little chapter generator. You have this button here. It's this little typewriter, and you can use this to open and close. And if you just want to close, you can also just go on the little X and it's gone. Any further questions?
Yeah, it's clear again.
It's clear again, good. So now we had a little look at how our chapter generator writes. And as you can see with this little numbering here, it always, okay, that was, it always writes in strides of 2 beats. And now I accidentally already showed you a different feature I wanted to show you today. That is quick edit and quick chat, which you can access either by clicking on this little button in the selection menu when you have something highlighted, or you can also access this with the shortcut either Command K on Mac or Control K on PC. Then it also would just pop up. And here you can, as this little prompt already tells you, just tell Sudowrite how you want to edit a selection, or you can go and quick chat about your project. And there are 2 versions in general, one basic free version. And for complexer tasks, you can also use a higher quality version. But in general, I'm quite happy with what I get when I use the free quick chat and quick edit for quickly doing some inline editing and chatting about my story. One thing about quick chat to keep in mind is that it has no history. So the moment you close it, everything it knows is gone. So if you want to keep any questions or anything else, you would need to copy paste it. But since we already started out with the little selection menu, when you select some passages, a passage of text, you get different options for different tools. For one, you can use the rewrite feature. That's the same as you have up here. Up here you can also access the settings and say how many cards or variations you want to have generated. But it doesn't really matter if you click here or there, just that you have something highlighted, and then you can choose here how you want this passage to be rewritten, like you want it to be more descriptive or something. And then you get this 3 little cards. And I'm not sure how well you can see it, but some parts are in violet and some are in black. And the black text is the text that's not been altered, and everything that's in violet that has been changed by the AI. That's a neat little way to make sure how much actually has been changed. To see this in one glance. And then you can just take the version, send it here, and it will replace the selected text. And as long as you don't touch it, it will also be in this violet, so that you can know what part of the AI text you haven't altered yet. But aside from rewrite, you also can use the describe tool, which gives you little cards for all the senses and metaphors. You can also use expand, which will take the paragraph and make it longer. In general speaking, right now, these tools don't see the story Bible, so they may miss a bit of the context when you're editing something. And another nice tool is visualize, which will give you an image of it's we'll use the highlighted text as a prompt for image generation with I think it's Dahlia. Oh, that looks quite nice. And you can just put this in here and have some illustration for your book. Good. Any questions about these tools?
Yeah, so there's a question. If you wanted to ask a question about plot, would you use Quick Chat for that?
Yes, I would generally use Quick Chat.
And what would you use Quick Edit for? Like, how do you break those up?
I would use, for example, you could use Quick Edit if you wanted to change the tone or the POV of a scene or the tense. You could basically use Quick Edit for any change you want to make in a text. And the nice thing about Quick Edit and Quick Chat is that they both are aware of Story Bible, so that they're better at keeping it true to your story than the other tools up here, at least right now. Stuff you could use would be, now we had made this a bit longer, but we think, oh no, this is too long. You can say, make this passage more concise, something like this. Let's see. Well, size. And different to other tools, it directly works within the document. And this green one is the new version, and the version that's strike through is the old version. And then you can go and read if this is actually closer to what you want. And if you don't want it, you reject it. In that case, it's just gone. And if you accept it, it would replace the old version. But if you go and undo, you have both versions still here and can go through them. That's a neat little trick if you want to like keep parts of both versions of the text. And for Quick Chat, it's really a good tool to like discuss basically with your project about the plot or other things. I hope that answered the question.
Yes.
Yes, great. Anything else in the chat?
I don't think so.
I think so, okay. So let me see if I had covered all the important things. I see the only thing, two things I haven't looked at yet. One, it's the write button, which is my favorite feature of Sudowrite. It has various modes. Auto write is as this little wording suggests, a bit like autocomplete plus magic. And it just reads the text before the cursor and continues in a way that makes sense with the story. And the nice thing is that it takes characters, world building, and outline into account while it does this. Same with guided write, but in this case, you can also give it some of your own like prompts of what you want to come next in the story. And you have in this box, you have 400 characters space, but they're working on making it bigger since 400 characters aren't that much. I mean, it forces you to be concise, but it would be nice to have a few more characters in there. Tone shift can be used to change the tone in a story. I must admit that I usually don't use this, since if I want to shift the tone, I can just tell it in auto or guided write that I want to do this. But if you're just looking for ideas, it's also a nice way to try this out. And then in the write settings, you can tell the write button how good it should be at following your prompt. And with low creativity, it's more likely to do as you tell it. With most, it takes more creative freedom in interpreting your commands. And since I usually know quite well what I want to have, I usually keep it on the least. In the write settings, you can also change the number of cards you want to have generated, the length of cards between currently 50 words and 500 words, although you have to keep in mind that's only approximately, since AI is notoriously bad at counting words. But it's always somewhere in this ballpark. Then you can change the prose mode, and it's important to keep in mind, if you change the prose mode on the write button, you only change it for write. This does not influence a chapter generator or any other of the features. It's only for the write button. So you can use different models for write and for chapter generator. And here in this, some other key details. In key details, you can put any sort of information you want to give auto write that it should keep in mind. Like, I also teach alongside with Manon, who I think isn't here today. We teach the multilingual class, and this is a good place to put information about the language. And then you can also give it ideas like write a gripping short story opener, yada yada. And you'll also have 400 characters in this key details for all the information you want to pass along to auto write. And it's also important to keep in mind it only works for auto write and not for the other two. So that was a very, very quick overview over the write button. If you want to know more about write, there's also classes for this. Write, rewrite, describe. We have our little brainstorm button, which opens another window where you can, let's go with names, where you can get this little form that you can fill in. For example, to get a list of names for an island nation inhabited by warriors. And then you give it some context, some examples, and then you can just hit start, and it will think for a while, and then give you some options that you can either thumb down if you don't like them, or thumb up if you want more in that direction and if you want to keep it. And if you save and exit, these suggestions will end up in your history. Okay, any questions about these features?
Can you explain what a card is
A card that's
in the right settings, in reference to the right settings?
in reference to the right settings.
Yeah. So how do
The
you?
number of cards.
There you go.
Like a card is the like every, like let's see, these are cards. Here, like for right, you had 3 cards here, and for right it's similar. If you go and have 6 cards in the right settings, you will get 6 different variations of your prompt. That will be depending on how high your creativity setting is, then will be more or less similar to each other. I like to use this when I'm setting a scene and looking for a gripping opener to get a few more ideas. And you would get, or let's just go and show how this works with auto-write for a moment. You will get several versions. Let's put it half. Use this star cannon. I haven't used star cannon yet, so this will be a surprise, and you just go there. Oh, one thing. Do not write all content in Polish. And then we will get our cards here with this neat little image. And depending on your model, it may take a while. And you will get sometimes you have a bit of a leakage that parts of the prompt will end up in the card depending on the model. But usually you will just get some sort of continuation from where you left off. As you can see with these cards, they're all a bit different. Some are shorter or longer. And then if you were actually writing this, you would pick 1 or 2 and bash them together. And also something that's quite important is up here you can see which cards were and which information from the story Bible was read for writing this card. I hope that answered your question. Since we're a bit over the hour, there's just one thing left I wanted to show you, and that's here the plugins. Because plugins are very powerful. They act like a bit like extensions to enhance your workflow. And they're usually, most plugins are created by users. There are a few that are built in, like Visualize or Feedback. And there's also one that you only see in a blank document or a blank chapter. And that's First Draft, that you can use to write a short chapter, basically like a short story. Let's just try this one. It would just start to write this with a bit of sparkles. So this was quite all right through all the features of Sudowrite. And that would wrap up the introduction. hope you feel a bit more confident about navigating the platform and using the features to enhance your writing, but we are already over the hour, but if you have any questions left, you can still just ask them. I don't mind going a bit longer. But
No
if the
questions. Yeah.
no questions, okay, good. So if the chat's clear and there are no questions, then I want to thank you all for being here. And also a huge thank you for Tomas for co-hosting with me today. And there are a few next steps for you to consider. One is join the Sudowrite Discord if you haven't yet, because it's a great place to connect with other writers. Then if there are any areas that sparked your interest, head over to the Sudowrite Luma page where you signed up for this class and see if there are any quick start sessions coming up that dig deeper into the topic of your interest. And also please leave a rating and a review to help us improve future workshops. So, and with this, I wish all of you happy writing, a wonderful Saturday, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.